All right, we are here taking a look at Engineered to a Purpose, and I'm joined by Keely. How are you doing today?
I'm doing great. How about you?
Doing all right. Just need to brace myself for the incoming screen shake at the start of the level here. But aside from that, oh, we've got a cutscene first. Right.
Yeah, they lulled
As
you into a false sense of security first.
yeah, I guess the I'm still like skim reading the tutorial text. But do you want to talk a little bit about what it is that we're seeing here? This like
The
fantasy
story stuff.
future, yeah.
Yeah, so I guess like the at like a high level, the premise of the story is that like there's this like robotic family that's like I guess taken their younger sibling and is like strapped them into this machine for like this big epic I guess like space machine ritual, and like the purpose is to like do like some big thing at the end.
Okay.
It sort of like goes more into detail in the story. I don't know if I should spoil
No,
what
no,
the
no,
like
no
plan
spoilers
is.
necessary. This is just
Okay,
some
cool. Yeah,
context, right? Because
yeah,
this is the Steam Next Fest demo, and I will reshare a link. Actually, I had that earlier. Then I closed Firefox when everything was running slow, but I should have it here. Okay, I'll grab that and drop the link in chat in case anyone who's just joining us would like to follow along. And then we're going to re-close Firefox because the demo is running a bit high on system resources right now. That's fine. Um, but yeah, I saw some things about like, was it transhumanism or like futurism? What were some of the buzzwords I was seeing on the Steam page there?
I think like transhumanism is one where it's like I think the like in like I'm not like the story person. I'm just like
Mm-hmm.
kind of tangential to it. So like I'm familiar with it, but it's not like my whole deal. But from what I know about it, it's like I think the insinuation is that they used to be human and they've sort of transcended to become these like robotic figures that are trying to do this big epic thing for the thing. Yeah.
Okay, trying to do this big epic thing for the thing. Got it.
Yes. Yeah. For some reason, they didn't go with that description for the story in the
The
on the
Steam
Steam
page.
page. But yeah.
So can you actually just? I know you said it earlier in the chat, but just for anyone just tuning in, can you remind us what your role in the project was?
Sure. So they initially brought me on as like person to do game balance stuff, and I was like, this is going to be impossible with like just play testing. So I took like a bit more of a role in terms of doing like data analysis stuff and like setting up automation software for it. So we have like a whole backend for running automated versions of the levels to try to balance all of the components and modifiers, because I'm sure you can imagine it gets kind of wild trying to get everything to work together. Um, and then from there, I've sort of taken on a bit more of a role of like producing and like giving some recommendations on like some of the UI stuff. So just sort of, I've become a bit of a jack of all trades, covering a bunch of different stuff at this point.
Gotcha. Okay, well that definitely helps because I think that was a little more information than you mentioned in your post anyway. Because I was kind of like nudging you to change that screen shake as well, and I wasn't sure how much capacity you might have had to do something like that.
I like I know how to program. Like I'm by like trade a programmer, but I'm like doing design stuff on this project. So I can do programming. It's just the main programmer on the project prefers to do his own coding stuff in general. Like it's just like don't want too many cooks in the kitchen sort of thing.
Absolutely. Oh boy, we are not doing so hot on this level. I guess I started with a really like slow AOE turret, and I probably shouldn't have, but that's okay. We're gonna take a little bit of damage. I'm gonna drop
Yeah, I
this one
find
here.
I don't know. Do you want me to like give comments on strategy related stuff, or would you prefer to just sort of figure it out?
Oh no, no, no! I should definitely be figuring it out because like, what's the
Okay.
point, right?
Yeah, true.
Okay, so I mean, would you say that there is typically a jump in difficulty on this level, or is that just a coincidence based on my chosen build settings?
I think that this level is meant to be sort of a switch up in terms of there's less opportunities. Like in level 2, there's a lot of like winding paths that sort of you do like the same loop more than one time. There's lots of like overlap for like a tower can hit multiple things on one thing. Level 3's like a straight path, but it like has a bit more of like it's more opportunity for the towers to hit stuff, whereas this one is just sort of a straight path.
Yeah.
So getting used to what sort of compositions you have to use in that sort of situation is kind of what this level's about as well.
Yeah, I think starting off by putting one, like, this is a suboptimal position. The optimal position for this corner would have been on the, like, furthest right, like, top right node here. But I
Yeah,
specifically put this one here because I wanted to sort of set up a combo of slowing
yeah,
and then hitting the things that have been slowed down.
yeah. That
So
makes sense.
that's
I find
okay.
that yeah. The what was I gonna say? The the disruption stuff is also very expensive with the mortar tower. So
Hmm.
it's like a big investment to get it. And if you don't sort of have like damage dealing stuff to go along with it, then it can be sort of tricky to get it to work properly.
Gotcha. Yeah, I mean the health pool is at least generous enough that I don't think I'm necessarily in danger of failing the level.
Mhm.
But yeah, so you mentioned that this is a oops, okay, scrolling. Whoop. Okay, I was trying to scroll the Twitch feed without scrolling the game, but it does both.
Oops.
No, that's okay. Because I was just trying to scroll up where you mentioned it's like 4 to 5 people on the team.
Yeah, it's like there's like 3 core members, and then there's someone who's doing some work with data stuff, sort of for like a backend for some data collection things, and
Mm-hmm.
then there's also a composer who's doing stuff for all the music.
Nice. So, and how long have you been working on the project? Or like how long, I guess, not just that, how long have you been working on it, but like how long has the project been, how
In the work sort of thing.
has been in the works? Yeah, I guess that's the best way
Yeah.
to say.
I think they've been working on it for about 6 years now, on and off. Not like full time or anything, um, but and I've been a part of it for about a little over 2 years now.
Okay, nice. Okay, so there we go. This is finally starting to have some kind of effect. The like slow and AOE combo that I was trying to set up, not necessarily as effective as I was hoping on this particular layout, but it shouldn't have been what I started with. Anyway, we're still gonna clear it, not like with perfect health, but doing all right.
It's surprisingly hard to do a perfect health run. I've done 2 Next Fest streams now, and both times I was like, I'm gonna play through the 10 levels, and then I'm gonna do try not to take any damage run, and like it was so hard to do it, even like having played the game so much.
And then is that just because like it's hard to design something that is, I mean, couldn't like once you have beaten a level with a certain tower of a certain design, there's nothing stopping you from just running that back and
Doing the
using it
same thing.
again, right?
Yeah, that's also like remembering the exact positions you put those towers. If like
Mm-hmm.
you have like a certain modifier difference where it's like this time I picked 4 seconds and 1 damage modifier for something, then all of a sudden your towers are doing very different things in the level. So it, it's the balancing in a microcosm where it's like, oh my god, there's so much stuff in this.
Exactly. Yeah. So you end up
Yeah.
having to remember a lot of different permutations.
Yeah, there's a lot of experimentation to sort of try to figure out what works and doesn't work. And even when you figure out what works, it can still take multiple tries to get it to work exactly the way you
Gotcha.
want it to. So, which is like kind of cool. It's kind of cool that I've probably put like 500 hours or something into this with all the playtesting I've done, and I still haven't figured out the best way to do everything yet. So,
I remember the first time that I was working on a tower defense game, and I got to the tipping point where I lost. Like where I, because I was designing this sort of like perpetual tower defense experience, and the moment where the AI in the game, it wasn't, it's not AI, it's just whatever, the spawning algorithm,
Yeah.
created something that actually overwhelmed my capacity to play it. Like, that was a really neat moment, because I knew I wasn't just spawning a nonsense number of enemies. I knew that I had actually created something that was difficult
Challenging.
enough,
Yeah.
exactly, that was properly challenging, that overwhelmed me in a way that felt fair.
Yeah. 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 That feeling is really cool. Like when I use the early spawn and I like screw myself over with it, I'm like, this. I'm glad that that's a thing. Like, it's cool that I can still get got by that sometimes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, sorry, I've really just been skimming through this, but I don't know. Like, are you looking for feedback on the story itself? Like, oh, actually, in general, can you elaborate on like what are you looking for in terms of the participation in the Steam Next Fest? Is it to like get eyeballs on the project? Is it to get playtesting and feedback? A combination of all those things?
I think it's like a mix of all the above. Like, especially getting eyes on it. We're like treating this as like a, I don't want to say like a soft launch, but like
Mm.
this is our first thing where we're like actively sharing it with like more than just like a few people, or we're just like sharing it with the world and seeing what people think about it. So it's like testing the waters, and also, yeah, getting the feedback's also helpful too. So
Right, because I remember that previously I had like when you shared a oh, hang on, the pathing on this one's running a bit. Oh, okay. It's just a very.
yeah, I've noticed that on this level, it like, yeah, it should be doing it a bit faster, I think.
I think. I think what you could do is you could like are these particles that are traveling down the route, or are they like actual instances?
I think it's particles. It might be. It might actually be an instance though.
Okay, because even if it is an actual instance, what you could do is in Unity the concept of like pre-warming a particle system.
Yes, I think so. Yeah.
Okay, so just to explain for anyone else, the idea is that if you have a like a star field effect in a particle system, but then you hit play and then there's no stars and then suddenly like a bunch of stars appear, it looks a little janky. So when you pre-warm a particle system, it just basically means that before you hit play, the system pre-populates a bunch of stars in that system. So that by the time the player sees it, it's not like those stars just pop into existence, they were there. And that's with the suggestion that I would make for this, that what we're seeing here is that pre-populate instances along the path so that the moment I put my cursor over the spawner at the end there, I can see the entirety of the path
Hmm.
like I'm seeing it right now.
Yeah, I think the only concern would just be that because there's some of that like
They go in
looping.
circles. Yeah.
Yeah, where it might be sort of difficult to convey that if at the start it's showing all of the lines doing stuff, you know.
That's true, but the lines themselves also vary in color.
Hmm.
So it's not too hard to just follow one
Going
set of
on.
arrows through the path.
Yeah,
Because this, looking at this gives me the sense of how the whole thing is going to go, and then if I really want to, I can look carefully as one comes out and say like, oh, okay, it goes in a loop and then comes back, and then goes in a counterclockwise loop, and
yeah,
then comes back around, and then it goes in a, I guess, another counterclockwise loop. Oh, it's three counterclockwise loops, yeah, and then goes out the thing at the end. Okay, so it just means that I can hit stuff really hard by putting something on this tower right here, theoretically, and then maybe we'll put a. I don't know if I want to put that there or there. That's going to hit a lot of stuff. So maybe we'll just do another AoE thing there. Yeah, we'll just try that. Okay, and we're just gonna let that run. I feel like I completely cut myself off giving feedback on the arrows though, because we were talking about like the Steam Next Fest. All I was saying before is that these are not my AoE towers. These are my laser beam towers. Oops, that's fine. I'll put down an AoE one when I can. Anyway, Yeah, so you were saying that this is the first capacity in which the game's been like publicly available for download, because previously
Yeah.
you just like sent me a direct exe that I was running.
Yeah, this is like our first time having it on Steam, having like the ability to have people wishlisted. So
And how long has Steam Next Fest been running so far?
it's been up since Monday, I think. It's last Monday.
Okay. And then how would you say the reception has been to the game so far?
It's like kind of hard to tell. Like we've been getting a lot of wish lists and stuff, but like the way, because it's only a demo and it's not like the main game
Mm-hmm.
where people can like buy it and leave reviews or like anything like that, like there hasn't been as much definitive feedback just yet. So
Gotcha.
I'm sure that might be something that comes when like more people play test it. We've only done one of the like big Next Fest streams like this morning where it was on the front page, so maybe we'll have more people play testing it now who might give us feedback, but we'll see, I guess.
Yeah, because I guess that as long as people aren't actually able to buy the game yet, they can't leave comments or reviews, right?
Yeah, it's kind of weird that you can't leave comments on a demo, but I guess like I kind of understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess maybe what you could do is, can you make a blog post on the Steam page, and then people can leave comments on the blog post?
Yeah, like we could make a post on there on the community page just asking if people want to give feedback. But I also feel like um, the average person who would leave feedback would just like look at like the review part of the bottom and be like, oh, there's nothing there for that. I'm not gonna leave any feedback because that's just the way people are, you know? Like
Yeah.
that's just, yeah.
I guess like it's very true. I guess the only thing I'm thinking about is, for your sake, for like if there is even like a small number of people who might be willing to give feedback on a project, who might look a little more intently at the Steam page. If the top blog particle, you give it like a big thumbnail that's like, leave your feedback, and then it's like, oh, what's
Yeah.
that? Click on that. And then there's the blog post where you can type a response. Like, I don't know.
Yeah.
It might be
And then
better
they
than
see
nothing.
that, they just read the first word, they're like, it's telling me to leave. I'm out of here.
Give feedback to us.
Yeah, that's probably a pretty good idea. I like at this point I'm just like thinking that if we want to get definitive feedback, we'll probably just ask people to like play test and do a similar thing to what we're doing right now together.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's probably doesn't hurt to just ask. So
Oh, I mean, yeah, Bartmoon. There's infinite ways you can corrupt it, where it just you can play with the language and such. But I remember when I was in high school, I ran the game making like club, and I made this poster that said free video games, and then in much smaller font it says got free time, want to make some games, like video games. It's just like, just I did that whole trick to big font, small font, get people's attention. Didn't work, but
still
it
fun.
was fun to think about. um, so why are these pink guys so tough? Oh, they got regeneration. Okay. So you really got to like focus fire on those. So maybe that's why these like lance beam towers are a little more effective. Zap. Okay, I mean, I was about to clear the level anyway. I think that was the only one that was going to make it through. Yay! And now, okay. So there were a couple levels in this demo that had no new stuff you unlock, and then you had 2 levels now where you unlock 2 things at a time. I definitely think you could space it out a bit so that you are unlocking a new thing every level.
Yeah, I could do it like that as well. I think we originally had it like that, but there was like some rationale why we changed it to be 2 at once. But like I see what you're saying, that like it might be better to have it so that like every level you have something new that gives you a reason to go to the design scene to like make something. So that might not be a bad idea.
I think that's, yeah, because the main, well, would you say the core appeal of the game is the customization of the towers?
I think that it's like the main hook, but like I don't know if it's like I think that it's like the thing that gives the game its depth. But I don't know if it's necessarily like if you should be spending most of your time designing or anything like that. If that makes sense. Like if it's
Okay.
more like it gives the game a lot of stuff you can do and a lot of things that you can tinker with. But if you don't spend all your time designing stuff, there's still something there, I think.
Right. I wouldn't say that, like, you don't want the player spending all of their time in the designer as much as they have the option, like, giving them. I would say early in the game, unlocking, like, one thing every level, and then unlocking two things, and then three things. Like, the longer you go, oh man, I'm definitely conflicted about this. I'm just sort of spitballing here,
Yeah.
but I would almost say, like, unlocking one thing per level early on, I think, is vital. And then even if you're not unlocking things for later levels, if you are getting more, okay, so I'm sorry, I'm just gonna like mash through this dialogue here. So these things, okay, so these things down here where you can assign points, like now I have 4 and I used to have 3. So what actually increased the number of points that I earned here?
That's the new sapience that got added in. So yeah, I think you're probably right with because like if we were to do it so that you have like that default thing where like if you only have the one option it auto picks it, we would probably update this tutorial to have it so that you have to pick between the two and pick the new one.
Mm-hmm. Because
Sort of reinforce that like, oh, you get the extra point for this, and you also get all of this stuff with the sensor as well.
yeah, because I couldn't determine what was giving me that point, and I don't know if you want to keep it tied together the way it is right now, or whether you want to just keep giving me new stuff to experiment with early on, and then in later levels you just give me more points to allocate so that I can like further push the customizations on the tower designs that I've earlier determined that I liked.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we definitely want to make it so that there's like tutorials in like the first world, and then maybe like a few in the second, and then it's just sort of like we're giving you stuff you can like sort of experiment with it and sort of figure out what you think makes sense with the description of it, rather than sort of holding your hand with it, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Because that is exactly what I was going to advocate for. Is like I think that. Oh my gosh, do I get into the Plants vs Zombies rant or do I not?
That's up to you.
Okay, okay.
It's your stream.
It's true, it's true. But I do. Okay. First of all, Bart Moon, I'm not sure. You said allocate plug count 1. I don't know. I haven't plugged allocate on this stream. I was talking about a different tower defense game that I made. Unique gameplay mechanics do add to the game. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry, I missed an earlier comment from Mini David, which was thing I've seen. Thing I've been seeing is I don't think all games need selling points. Need a gameplay selling point. Some games are just look good or are polished enough, but unique gameplay mechanics are add to the game. Okay, I think that every game has a unique selling point. And then the question is your game's unique selling point the visuals or the story? There is always a unique selling point to a game. It's not always a gameplay feature. So that is the only clarification I would add to your point, Mini David. Ooh, I'm back into PowerPoint mode. Seems to be like it lag spikes or something. Okay, so Plants vs Zombies rant real quick. What that game does very well is making you think that every level you've unlocked something new. What you realize is that 3 of those towers in the game are the exact same. And then one of those towers is just, it's like the other tower that you have, but it shoots twice as fast. And then it's one of the same towers you've unlocked, but it does like a slowdown. And then there's the walnut, and then there's the tall nut. Well, those are just the same, it's just with more health. And then there's the pumpkin, which is just the walnut again, but now you can plant it over top of other plants. So when you look at the list of Plants vs. Zombies, like the first game, it looks like there's 50 plants in that game. There's actually about 10, or maybe like 12 or 15, but still, like, they make you think you're unlocking a lot of stuff, whereas realistically, it's not that. There's very few that are actually unique. They're mostly just upgrades of one another. And as a designer, I hate that. Looking at the average tower defense player, I think that's what people want. I think people want this slow drip of things that people that feel like they're unlocking something new every single level.
Yeah.
And even if it's not actually changing it, if it gives you some new toy to play with, you feel like you are getting progress and unlocking something new.
Yeah, we can hook into the whole loot box brain thing without having to be unethical about it.
Yeah. Sorry, Icy Lava, to clarify, when I say that tall nut and walnut are the same, I mean that by the time you have tall nuts, it completely obviates the use of walnuts. Like, it's just a defense thing that sits there and does nothing and absorbs damage. And one is taller, so you'd never want the short one anymore. Oh, but it costs slightly less. It's like, well, yeah, I mean, they're just different parameters on the same basic design. Like, they don't behave any different. I don't strategize with them any differently. They're just too expensive, not worth it, or this combo goes really well. Like, I basically beat every level in Plants vs. Zombies with like 500 leftover sun because I just had nothing to do and I just had this machine that was playing itself by the end. So I thought that game was kind of boring because it just felt like every level was more of the same. Anyway.
Yeah, I think that with this game, it may, I could see more of an argument for why you'd want to do one unlock, especially in the first world, just because you want to give more excuses for people to be like, oh, I unlocked a thing, I should make a tower with that. Like, I think that makes sense.
Yes.
And, yeah, I'll probably bat for that. I'll try to convince the main design person that that's a good idea.
So here's a question, like, actually relating to your game. What's the difference between the simple and the advanced plasma accelerator?
So, going from simple to advanced is like a tier up, basically, where the first one gives you 1 modifier point and has the base 3 modifier options, and then choosing the advanced one gives you options to 4 different modifier options and gives you 2 points that you can sort of allocate towards which modifiers you choose for your tower.
Okay. And then is it a difference in cost again as to like which ones you
choose between the two of them?
Yeah, like why would I decide to go the simple one once I have unlocked the advanced one?
So at some point, let's say you want to use just like something that like puts an effect on something, or you want to sort of take advantage of some aspect of a converter without having to buy the most expensive tower option. There's sort of like room where you may want to take a cheaper option that can like put effects on stuff, or you may want to take a cheaper option which you can afford early on in the game, and then once you sort of are like ramping up and having to deal with better enemies, you have to sort of choose something that's more efficient in terms of like the more advanced options.
Yeah, I'm seeing that now that it's increasing the cost when I pick one versus the other. So is there somewhere on the UI where I can
show the cost of the thing?
Yeah.
I think that we've talked about adding that and we just have not done it yet. So I will make a note to be like, we need to do that.
There we go. Okay. Because I think that might be the key factor here in helping to distinguish these. And then, like finding a condensed way, like a way to
indicate the extra point sort of thing as well would probably
exactly.
be good as well. Yeah, that's a very good call.
So, because you've got a tooltip for it, and you press shift to expand.
So we might as well put it in there. Like, there's no reason not to. So
yeah I see the 2 modifier points, the 1 modifier point.
I feel like we could probably condense that with some like smart iconography though, rather than having like tiny
Yes.
text. So
Yes. Iconography, having like, yeah, like a symbol for modifier point and then 1, and then a symbol for modifier point and 2, and then like
yeah,
having things in different colors, like
yep.
the more you can sort of, because I imagine you're building this UI out with Text Mesh Pro.
I think so. Yes.
Okay, so you should
You
be
can use
able,
icons there. Yeah.
yeah, you should be able to apply different styles to the text and everything to have things stand out, and you can inject icons directly into the text as well.
Mm-hmm.
Is, take it from me, having worked with Text Mesh Pro extensively on my day job, I know you can do these things.
Yes. Yeah.
It's not necessarily the easiest thing in the world, but
It is doable.
yes, I promise you that.
Yeah. We have used it for some stuff. Just we haven't integrated it everywhere in a way that we probably should at this point. So.
Okay, yeah, so we got the extra little spikies here. And I can see the difference in this stage of the tower here, but once I'm putting these things down, I don't know if I can actually tell them apart. Like, I think that's one thing that Plants vs. Zombies does do very well, is that the plants all have a great sense of personality, and they're all these, like, living, bouncing things that are
Telegraph
very...
what they do, sort of thing.
Yeah, to some extent. But it's more just like they look visually distinct from each other.
Mm-hmm.
Like you
The
can.
one thing. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead.
Oh, I was just gonna say, like, you can glance at a field and like you're not confused when you see like a basic pea shooter versus a repeater side by side. Like, you can tell, oh, that one's got an extra head. It shoots backwards or whatever.
Yeah. The one thing that we have that's sort of telegraphing some of this stuff is that when you add more modifier points, like if you add modifiers onto the tower now at the bottom, and just sort of like add all 4 and just like hit OK.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, these things.
Yeah, so hit confirm on that. If you see, it's you get like additional height. Sorry, the stream's like delayed for me.
Yeah,
so
I know, by a slight lag. So I can see what effect that's having.
But it's not like obvious at a glance which one is doing which thing.
I absolutely could not tell one from another, because they all use the same color scheme and they all use this same shader, I assume, this like blue or like neon kind of glowy effect.
Yeah, I've tried pitching the idea of having them be very visually distinct, but there's sort of like an argument about like keeping the aesthetic uniform, where they don't really want to sort of tinker with it and have it clash too much as well. So
I understand that sentiment, but then I can just tell you right now, you can save yourself a lot of development energy and time by just taking these out entirely. Because there's no point in making this like power stack sandwich look any different if they all look the same. Like, for everything that this is adding to the design, it's just more polygons you don't need to put on the screen, because I can't tell them apart.
Yeah, the one thing that's kind of nice is that when you get to like the higher level towers, like your highest level towers are like visually very obviously much taller than your smaller towers, but maybe that's not worth the amount of stuff that's in there as well.
Oh, sorry, I'm making like an argumentum ad absurdum. I'm saying, like, if you don't want to change the colors, you may as well just take all this work and throw it away. I'm not actually saying. Sorry.
You would think it should have the different colors. Yeah. True.
Yes, I was maybe I was too convincing there.
You got me.
I was just saying, like, you've done all this work to not give it distinct colors and make it possible to look at and make it visually distinct would be the same as taking all this work and just like throwing it away. Having the different towers like stacking up and increasing height and like putting more modifiers on them seems pretty neat. I assume if I pick 2 of the same modifier, it puts them side by side.
It doesn't automatically. You can sort of reorder them if you want. Like there's like a functionality if you click and drag on the actual visuals.
Oh, okay.
Sort of reorder them. We don't like tutorialize that, but it is a thing you can do.
Yeah, okay. I mean, I think that by default it would be nice to group them together, because then, like, then you can tell, like, oh, this thing has like 3 sharp power banks and then like one of these like slowy effects at the bottom. But yeah, either giving things differences in color, or because I mean when you zoom out to a certain level,
It's not visually obvious, yeah.
no, because there's just so much,
Detail
so
on it.
yeah, there's a lot of other stuff. Like there's the whole base of the tower, and there's the top of the tower, and there's like it's gonna be very difficult to make these things actually look visually distinct.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then as Serene Jellyfish points out, like you play so much of the game zoomed out anyway that you aren't really gonna notice it.
Yeah.
I would say that it's something that because it's there, it's neat, and I wouldn't actually advocate to throw it away. I would say if push ever came to shove and there was something about the feature that's like, oh man, this is really causing problems with optimization or whatever, then you could drop it. Maybe, yeah. I don't know how this like dynamic meshes, because I have to assume that what we're looking at here is actually made of several different meshes all layered together, because they're not because they are procedural rather than something that's built in Blender. So you probably do end up with some redundant polygons and such. I don't think that's breaking the bank. Like these all look like pretty low poly designs. I assume that some of these spheres are not necessarily as round as the lighting is convincing me that it is. Like I can look at this ring here, and that's a little more polygonal in the middle here.
Yeah. I think if it were my design, I would totally just be like, yeah, we should just change the color. But because it's sort of like that sort of dynamic, and like they have like very strong opinions about this, I think that like just getting the like visual difference between like high level versus low level towers, where your low level towers are just much shorter, is like almost enough to like justify it in itself, where I'm personally happy with how that sort of feels, even if it's not obvious the differences between two bullet towers that have different modifiers on them, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think that like if you want to
encourage this more, sort of thing.
Well, I was just gonna say, like, if you want to, one easy thing you can do is make it so that the powers like auto stack together, as I've done here, because I think it's gonna be more visually cohesive if you have if you have two of something to stack them side by side, because the moment that you let's say there's one fewer of these, one more of these, like these. This becomes almost illegible this way. But if you take the two big guys and put them towards the bottom, and you have the two smaller ones and you keep those near the top, now this is a little bit more legible.
Yeah.
So true. If you could do those two things, A, stack like power modifiers together, and B, put the bigger ones towards the bottom, make sure that whatever like is visually larger heads towards the bottom of the tower, I think that'll create a much more like cohesive design for the tower. And then you have this interface here already. If the user wants to go in and mess with it
afterwards, that's
then why not? That's fine.
Makes sense. Yeah.
But yeah, I think that's a good compromise on not actually having to not actually changing any of the colors or the designs if there are strong feelings surrounding that. Why tangle with that when you don't need to? But yeah, just this way you take the work that's there and you honor it by just giving it a little bit more coherence.
Yeah, and that's like an easy. I don't want to say it's an easy change, but it's probably an easy change. I'm not the coder for getting that stuff actually changed. So.
Yeah, gotcha. Bye-bye, Bart Moon. Thanks for joining us.
See you later.
Okay, so all that's been said, we've got this tower constructed now, and I can actually change. Yeah, so there's a lot here. Has buff, has no buff. Okay, it's the same remove effect. Wow, there's a lot going on here. Target furthest, target closest, manual targeting. Remove subclass, prioritize caster targets. Wow. So this went from being like very basic to suddenly seeming very complicated. But okay, so there's has buff, has no buff, has debuff, has no debuff, has effect, has no effect, remove effect. Okay. So I guess I could, yeah, I can click that to cancel any of the other options. So this would be useful for my tower if I want it to slow things down. Then I would say has no debuff. Prioritize caster, remove subclass. I don't think I regular elite. Both. Okay, so that's my option for one of these or the other. Prioritize caster targets. That's the only option I have right now. Target closest, target furthest, manual target. No, I do want target closest, has no debuff, and then apply slowing down effect. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I think I'm good to give this tower a shot. So this is my freeze advanced tower. Save. Okay, we'll give that a shot. Yeah, so other than that, let's see.
It's always so fun to see what people choose for naming conventions.
Oh, I mean, I think if I
Go ahead.
oh, I was just gonna say, like, if I sat here actually trying to come up with like names for these things, it would be like Terrence.
Yeah. That's very good. The Terrence Tower. That's great.
All of my towers just begin with the letter T.
Yeah. Or just like have a variety of names. So this is my Tim Tower and my Melissa Tower.
And you know, I know some people get like super into naming things. I'm one of those people that never names my Pokemon. Like, I just bad at coming up with stuff. My partner, she's way better at coming up with names for things. Like, she'll go into like mythology, and just like come up with cool names of like gods or goddesses or mythological creatures, like all kinds of cool stuff.
Yeah.
For me, I just need functionality. I just need to remember what the dang thing does.
Yeah, that makes sense. I was playing today, and I was doing a thing where I was offering for people in the Steam Next Fest chat to suggest names for the towers I was making, so they started naming them after cards and stuff like that.
Okay, that's a good outcome. I was gonna say like
It could have been risky, yeah. It was mostly people I knew, so.
Yeah, no, that's cool. God, we have seen the internet name some things just horribly.
Yeah, it's kind of true.
Like Bodie McBoatface is like, you know what? At the end of the day, it's exactly.
Yeah, I was running it a little risky with that.
Well, I mean, there's nothing wrong with like soliciting options from chat. Like I do that somewhat. You know, I haven't played a game that necessitates asking chat for feedback on things in a while, but I guess this would have been an option. Okay, so once again, we're back to one of these maps where there is quite a bit of overlapping on the pathing. So we go make this whole circuit around the outside, then come back. Oh no, okay, so it's a circle around the outer left side, then the inner inside, then back around the outer left side, then back around the inner left side, and then back down. It's very it takes a while to like wrap your brain around this. Do you know why there was this much emphasis placed on like overlapping paths?
This was, I think the level design for the first world is kind of pre me. For World 1 is kind of pre me, I think. So I'm not entirely sure.
Okay. Just wasn't sure.
I think it's like relatively unique, but it is like confusing, like first time playing. Like I think there's like some unique interactions that happen with it, but like following what is happening the first few times, especially on level 2, is like, wait, what are the enemies doing? Why are they wrapping around again a second time? But I think once you're used to it, it's like kind of an interesting dynamic.
All right.
But yeah, I feel like the level 2 one is like particularly confusing if like your first time playing it, where you're like, wait, why are the enemies coming back around?
Yeah, I think like I understand it eventually, and it does lead to those like. Remember, I was saying that like the fundamentally a tower defense game like this sort of boils down to some basic geometry and just like overlapping the diameter. But well, now you have to weigh the fact that like, oh well, the this enemy is going to loop back onto this part of the path multiple times. So
Hmm. I think it also leads to a bit more of like junction points where you'll have like crossings where a set of enemies will sort of be passing in the same spot,
mhm.
where you can like sort of set up interesting tower position stuff like that.
Okay, there we go. So now I've got my AoE slow, which again definitely shouldn't have been the first tower that I placed. I realized that sorry, my freeze advanced tower as opposed to my AoE slow tower, and despite the fact that I set up this naming scheme, I immediately forgot what it was, and then now this tower didn't kill anything. So we're gonna restart one more time. Wouldn't looping back through the same path make the level artificially easier? Yeah, I mean it in some senses, it is making the level strictly easier than if they didn't loop back over the same path because it allows you to use fewer towers. Um, However, I think I kind of like the idea of the paths looping more than them not looping, just because I've played plenty of tower defense games where the towers don't loop, and the best you can kind of hope for is for the paths to get kind of like converge and get near each other again. Um, the fact that the pads actually loop allows you to kind of exploit the AI of your towers, as far as I understand. Oh, and I've got like another upgrade option here. I didn't even notice that.
The thing about yeah, so if the level is sort of like a straight shot, the balance will typically be a little bit easier, where it'll be the enemies will be just like slightly easier to deal with than if it's looping a bunch. They'll be just like generally a little bit more difficult because it's easier to deal with them. So um, there's sort of like a bit of a balance difference between those two types of levels.
Yeah, because you can really set up the AOE towers especially can be hitting stuff that is making its first and second pass around.
Hmm.
Okay, we're
I
doing
think
much
the
better.
AOE is like it's a little bit too strong right now in general, because like the whole point, the like drawback of it is that like it's not easy to hit stuff, but the moment you start adding the radius modifiers to it, it's like, oh, I've just fixed the only problem with this tower, and it hits many enemies and it does a lot of damage. It's pretty good.
Yeah,
So I think we need to tinker with it a little bit more.
that was something that I like. I think you probably saw. It was the first thing I looked at. It was like, this the AOE of this tower is like it's actually kind of small. It's hard to hit things. How about I just put all my points into increasing that?
Yeah, it's the logical thing to do, and it is very very strong. So I think
Okay.
it either needs to be more drawbacks associated with it, or like the cost needs to be higher or something. So now it's a bit too strong.
Yeah, I mean, like, by the time you give the user the ability to modify the towers, I think it becomes super challenging to actually balance everything and make sure that you know at the end of the day like someone on the internet is just gonna come
Yeah.
along and be like, hey, look at this insane build that I put together for this. Like you
I
just
mean, I'm
can't
kind of
win.
excited for that too, though. I want to find out how people are going to find some like ridiculous thing where it's like, oh, if you sell this tower while it has this thing, then you can get like extra money, and then like all of a sudden, wow, you've broken the game.
Yeah.
This kind of stuff is bound to happen.
Yeah, so I'm realizing one thing I should do here is I'm going to create a new tower that is just a simple one. It's a cheap cost, uses this basic thing, uses advanced sapience, and this one is going to target stuff that has a debuff so that it's going to follow up on whatever I had shot before, adds damage to your attacks. Yes, we're going to use that one instead, and we're going to be lingering damage or decay. 1.5 seconds of temporary damage over time versus 1.5. Wait, what's the difference? Temporary damage over time, lingering damage. I'm gonna go with the lingering damage. That seems interesting. And then, okay, we're just gonna double down on that. Confirm. Okay, and then this is follow up. Save. Okay, so the reason I've constructed this like secondary tower now, I'm sure this is a pretty common tactic, is I've got one tower here that's dedicated to slowing things down, and it's targeting everything that doesn't have a debuff, and now I want another tower that does target things that have the debuff so that it can actually exploit the things that have been slowed down.
I actually haven't seen anyone try that before.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's like funny, like, because the systems have like so many different things with like the even just like at corruption and disruption, which are like early game stuff that like I've tested with a lot. I've already seen like 3 things just from like seeing a few friends play tests where it's like I've never thought about using it that way, and that's what you're trying is something I'd never thought about either. So
yeah, I mean, it remains to be seen whether it works on this particular level, or like I think in general the strategy is sound. Just maybe I haven't yeah, it looks like I'm about to start taking a lot of damage here, because I think I should have started with a slightly different layout. But oof, yeah, I'm taking a lot of damage here. Let's see if we can put this another AoE tower. Hopefully, I guess. Is there? I don't know if it's just going to be like getting into spoiler territory, but do you get a tower sapience that can target stuff that is like furthest along the path?
yeah, that's the closest to the base is furthest along the path. That's like the default setting right now.
Oh, I thought it just targeted whatever's closest to the tower.
No, it's whatever is closest to the base. We used to have it closest to the tower, but we felt like the towers just didn't feel as good as it does with like closest to base being the default thing.
Yeah, that does make sense. Like you would always want it to target things that are closest to the tower.
Yeah, we just didn't like the thing of like, it felt like people might be like, why are our towers like if you like were playing the first 5 or 6 levels, you're like, why are my towers doing like targeting so silly?
Yeah.
Like, we sort of just wanted to avoid that sort of problem.
Yeah. No, that makes sense. Okay, so we got this thing that's slowing stuff down, and now they're just walking right past everything. Okay, so that didn't work. I think
I feel like
lose.
there's potential. There's potential there, though.
Okay, I was defeated. Well, that's fine. I'm not sure if there's much else I had to ask about in the way of, or, well, give in the way of feedback or ask about in the way of, like, uncertainties. Was there anything else specifically that you were looking for in terms of feedback?
I don't think so. Like, I remember you had like lots of really good feedback in like the tutorial area the first time, and with like the UI and the UX experience. So like, I made sure to like copy a lot of notes while you're in that area, because you always have lots of good ideas when it comes to that kind of stuff. So like the bulk of that stuff, like I'm definitely gonna take that into account and try to push for those things. But yeah, I don't think there's anything like specific from here. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I know that there's a limit to how much like I can suggest or give feedback on something, and then it's like, well, that's going to take a lot of time and effort to implement something like that, so you might not be able to implement it by the very next time I play the game. Like, I know it hasn't been that long, all things considered, between now and when I played the game last.
Yeah. I like a lot of the stuff you did suggest, though. We did sort of revamp the entire first 2 tutorials to like account for a lot of the stuff that you talked about. It's just a lot of the things that you're sort of picking up this time are things that we've added since then to try to address some of those things that you and other people have said. So.
Oh, I also realized I had an upgrade point that I didn't spend on the plasma charge tower, so I'm sure that's going to help. Is there something that draws the user's attention to that any more than just the UI is pink?
I think I I felt like it used to say like a warning being like, warning, you've not used all your points, but I don't know, maybe that got taken out at some point.
Hmm.
But I think it would be worth thinking about adding that back in.
Yeah, just because it seems like something that's very important to, like, you definitely want to get the heads up that you are, you have points, like unspent points. Like it's such a common thing that you see in games is the, like, you
Yeah.
have unspent points, and it's like, on the one hand you don't want to be too naggy about it, on the other hand you don't want players to not realize
Yeah,
they
I
have
not
it.
noticed it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There's definitely more possibility with the latter than the former, so.
Yep. I guess other than that, okay, so that was the, like, auto advance. So there's no bonus I can get. Okay, now I have the opportunity for a bonus. Ah, you know what? I think one reason that I'm not clicking on this thing over here is because I don't know how much energy it's going to give me.
Well, the mechanic is those little white dots will give you 35 energy anytime they're full.
Yeah,
Is the
I'm
idea.
seeing that in the mouse over text now. I guess I just didn't realize that would necessarily be the case. But so it gives you 35 just for the one pip of energy, and then you have to wait for this. So now I've clicked it a second time and I've got an extra 35, but that wasn't necessarily worth it because I've just put a
Now
lot of
there's
enemies in
many
the field.
enemies. Yeah.
Yep. Okay, well, we're gonna try putting this over here. At least I seem to be doing better this time around. I think it was just starting with a better base. Oh, having an AoE follow-up instead of a laser follow-up might have been a better idea, but, you know, it's all about experimentation.
Yeah.
I think that another issue you can run into is just, like, again, when there's too large of a possibility space, you can get a little overwhelmed with, like, oh, you know, should I try doing something like this or should I try doing something like that? Like, it can be difficult to get the feedback on, oh, okay, this is why I failed and this is what I need to change. And
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not sure there's like an easy way around that with this particular genre though, because there's like so many possible ways that you can run into stuff with the different levels where like we can like guess at like what people will struggle with in a given level, but
it's going to vary from one player to another.
Yeah, exactly. Because if you don't use specific kinds of towers or you're like using modifiers that just don't work well together, there's no easy way to sort of be like, oh, maybe you shouldn't use all rate of fire modifiers on all of your towers. Like, you can't really tell people that sort of thing.
Yeah, so. It's something that you want the player to discover, like, in an emergent way, ideally, which is very hard. Like, having players ever discover something in an emergent way is like the game design ideal, because it means that something has clicked on an intuitive level for the player, which is awesome when you can make it work.
I feel like it's kind of like my stance on it for this game is that it's kind of like a puzzle game sort of thing, where like there's going to be some puzzles that like some players are not going to be able to figure out, and if this game like somehow takes off where we have like a community, like that's what like walkthroughs and like the internet's for. If you get stuck on a level, you'll be like, I don't understand why I'm losing, and then someone has a guide being like, oh, this is how you beat this level, sort of thing. So
yeah, I mean, the other option is, like, if you go the, like, Plants vs. Zombies route, then you just give direct counters for things, which I don't like. You know, I'll just put that out there. You may have noticed there's a lot of things I don't like about Plants vs. Zombies, but that is kind of, like, that game is at its best when the player feels like, ooh, I can create some unique combo that counters this thing. It's at its worst when, hey, we just gave you a thing, and guess what? In the very next level, there's a thing that requires you to use that thing. Like, on some level, players will feel tricked into, like, oh, I just had an idea. I should use the hole puncher because in the next level I need to punch holes. It's like, good job.
Yeah. I mean, we kind of do have that in this game though, because this level there's like the healers, and you unlock the advanced sapience, which gives you access to the focusing casters if you sort of need to deal with that sort of thing.
Oh,
But it's not like as in your face about it of like, this is the kill set, like casters component, use this now. Like it's more like this is an option on one of the components which might be helpful if you are like exploring with it sort of thing. So
I'll be honest, I didn't actually know that the regenerators counted as casters.
yeah, true. Yeah, that's maybe something we could maybe try to convey better as well.
Yeah, so I think that one thing I would love to see is, and you know, this is one of those, like, I know I'm about to make a suggestion that I know would be a stupid amount of work to implement, but I just want to say it anyway. Shorter levels that showcase particular tower designs, maybe even like, did you have in mind the ability for like players to share, like over Steam Workshop, the towers they construct?
Yeah, there is the ability to sort of, it's not in the game yet, but it is planned to have the functionality to sort of like export a tower design as like a text file that someone else can then import into their game.
Right, right. So then if you had like tiny offshoots from the main branch that just showcase, like, here's a tower that is like purpose built for dealing with this kind of enemy, and then you're kind of tipping your hand and giving away, like, well, here's one way of dealing with this enemy is using this kind of tower. Like, if there was some way you can construct an experience around, like, we are about to throw a bunch of this enemy at you, without just giving them the tower that deals with those, like, I'm really trying to think about how do
Maybe
you
like a
intuitively lead.
challenge, like a mini challenge thing in like the design scene where it's like defeats this X composition thing with, because that's something that I really want to add long term is like making it so that there's like level specific achievements where it's like beat this level only using this thing to just sort
Yeah.
of encourage people to try different stuff for those who are completionists and that sort of stuff. But I'm not sure if that particularly helps with this specific issue, but um, maybe something along those lines where it's like some sort of game embedded thing that's like defeat like this wave composition in the design scene to unlock achievement or something like that, or store points or something. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's tricky, like, how you set that up exactly. But what I think you gain from that is the sense that players will be encouraged to get a better sense of, like, okay, I see this kind of enemy or this composition of enemies, and I should be trying to use a tower that behaves in this way.
Yeah.
Because right now, I don't have that sense. Right now, I don't look at the enemies and think, oh, I should use this kind of tower or that kind of tower. I just kind of say, like, more towers, put them in good
Yeah.
spots.
I think that in general, though, like the design philosophy is supposed to be more like not you should use this laser tower in order to defeat this level. It's more like there are multiple ways that you can approach
Oh,
this
yes, of
problem.
course.
So I think it's like the designer doesn't want to sort of, the main lead designer doesn't want to be pushing people towards a specific
No.
right answer, if that
Yeah,
makes
you
sense.
don't want to be heavy handed with this sort of thing, but I guess the issue right now is that I can't tell enemies apart, and I don't know, like, if you had these micro challenges that weren't full levels but that just focused on a specific kind of enemy. I think that's what I'm leaning towards as my suggestion is you have these micro challenges that are just about facing down one class of enemy, and then you let the player have this like shorter iteration loop on seeing what works and what doesn't against that enemy. So we're not telling you that you have to use this kind of tower or that kind of tower against the enemy, but we're just going to throw a whole bunch of them at you, and you got to figure out, okay, this tower plus these mods works well enough against this enemy, or maybe this other tower with these other mods works well enough. But
Yeah.
the point is, it's going to be a short, intense burst of enemies that you're going to face off against.
And you don't have to worry about like the long-term commitment of like getting to the end of the level to find out if your composition is good or not.
Yeah, you don't even have to worry about the long-term commitment of saving out the tower.
Mm-hmm.
Let's say
Yeah.
that these are levels that you play in the designer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
you
Exactly.
just have this one tower that you're prototyping. Like that could be the revamp that you were sort of like leaning towards. Is like it takes place inside the designer. You just load up like, okay, maybe there's a couple different paths that have these different I don't know, like I'm imagining like a list of these pre-built things that you can tick off as you go, and they aren't like core to the story. Maybe they should be. I don't know. Like there's a lot about this that's just kind of up in the air. But I'm really inclined. I'm really leaning towards the idea of you have one tower that you need to keep modifying until it can defeat the enemies that you're presented with in that level. And it's a
Yeah.
super short level, and it just encourages the player to come up with something that deals with them. And we're not going to tell you. We're not going to tell you what. We're not going to be too heavy-handed in that sense. We're not going to give you the
But
pre-built
it's
tower.
yeah, but it's easier to sort of experiment against it versus like it's a lot more work for someone to be like, I want to figure out how to deal with this enemy. I'm going to go into the design scene and make a wave composition and test that wave composition. Like people just aren't going to do that. Like that's
Yeah,
just too much work. I think
exactly.
having some pre-built challenge, like a challenge is a good way of framing it. I just don't know if it feels like there should be a reward, and I don't know what that would be in the context of the game. So
Yeah, I mean, when I sometimes when I play like a real time strategy game, um, I just get a little like a silver star if I clear it on one level of difficulty, and then a gold star if I
sure,
clear it on another level of difficulty. Like
yeah,
sometimes just having a row of stars is enough of a reward for players
that's true. Yeah,
because it's all leading towards that sense of completion. So like it can literally be as simple as a checkbox for like you cleared this one, or it can be as complicated as there are like you cleared it but you took some damage, or you got a perfect clear and you took no damage.
yeah. I think that's a good idea too, because I think my concern with the design scene has always been like, yes, you can experiment in it, but like, is it like I think the UI is like one whole conversation where it's like it needs to be super easy to use when you get in there. But even more than that, it's like, are people going to feel inclined to be like, I'm having trouble with this. Let's make a whole set of waves of this manually in order to test this out. Like, I just don't think that's something that's necessarily going to happen very much. Whereas if it's like, there's challenges which mimic the sort of stuff in a level, then that might be a bit more feasible. If that makes sense.
Yeah, exactly. Because I think it's totally fine to have this interface where you can sort of cluster like custom enemies, and again, like the more you put stuff like this onto Steam Workshop, the more players can come up with their own patterns of enemies and maybe even their own level compositions, and who knows what else you're allowing players to like custom build down the road. But
Yeah.
I think the built-in stuff is going to be a lot cleaner and a lot easier for the average user to just go in and be like, I'm going to fight this batch of simulated enemies. It's like version 1, and then maybe the which like batch of enemies you unlock or like, that you fight are like they unlock over time. So you just know like, okay, early game I've got the tools that I need to deal with these first 4 batches of enemies, maybe fewer, and then the more towers you get, the more of those challenges unlock, and you can go through and complete them all.
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Also, do we have to include you as honorary designer in the credits of the game at this point after all the input and feedback you've given for stuff?
I will leave that up to you. Other people have actually given me like a shout out or a special thanks in the credits, and I always appreciate that, because I think that the more people see my name around, the more that they're gonna know to like come on this stream and
Mm,
actually get feedback from me. So I would appreciate it if you go with that idea, if you think that that is useful or some permutation of it. But I'm not gonna be like, okay, and the royalty
taking you
checks
to
coming
court,
when?
buddy. Yeah.
Sorry.
You're taking me to court when? Yeah, no,
No, no.
at this point, I feel like, especially if we use that idea, like I would definitely consider you as like someone I would put under playtester for sure. But like even more than that, you've given lots of useful feedback. So if we do end up using that idea, I'll definitely make a case for you being a official like honorary contributor to the design of stuff.
Okay, awesome. That I super appreciate it. All right, well, we're at a pretty good time. We're going to be wrapping up the stream here momentarily, so I guess we'll just say our goodbyes. Any last thoughts before we part ways?
No, just like I really appreciate you taking like a full 2 hours to test stuff like like that's just like super awesome. Like and I have so many notes that are so useful. Like the last idea is like that feels like a potential game changer sort of thing. So like anytime I can have a conversation with someone and sort of get that kind of input on stuff, I really appreciate it.
Yeah.
Yeah, your stream's just really awesome. I really like spending time on it, and it's just been I've been so busy the last like 3 months with stuff that I haven't had as much time to be here, but it's always a pleasure hanging out
Yeah,
and stuff.
likewise. And it's I love having like there are a lot of games I play honestly where I'm just like I have barely anything to say about this. But this one I felt like I actually did have a lot that like I understand this fundamentally enough. I've made a couple tower defense games, so I feel like I can talk in this vocabulary and I have things to contribute. And I've seen my own games go on to, well, the Orbit really didn't succeed. And Allocate as a demo, I think, had some interesting points, so I can at least tell you what didn't work, you know?
Mhm.
So, cool. All right. Well, thank you so much for joining me, and I'll let you go before I do the whole wrap up spiel.
Yeah, for sure. Take
All
it
right.
easy. Thanks
You
again.
too. Have a good weekend. Bye bye.